Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Friending the Mirror. My guest today is Crystal Hodges. I am author and professional speaker Don Shaw. And because I don't get to have the little bar under my name today due to the lovely advantages of technology that sometimes doesn't work, my website is www.facinguptoit.com. But this really isn't about me. This is about Crystal and her story. Crystal Hodges, people may not know her by name, but millions have seen her face. Born with a prominent purple port wine birthmark, Crystal unintentionally became an internet meme when a photo of her was stolen and went viral, traveling the world to over 30 million people through social media. Since then, she has striven to redefine society's understanding of true beauty via blogging and public speaking. She addresses audiences at elementary schools, churches, youth camps, women's events, and has led several hospital sensitivity talks in her local area. She is currently writing a book about her own journey with a facial difference. And she is the social media coordinator for the Vascular Birthmarks Foundation. Three consistent companions are her camera, a pen, and some paper as she constantly tries to capture the beauty that surrounds her. Her work has been seen on Yahoo, on Variety, and on her blog site at www.thetravelingchick.com. Crystal, I'd like to say welcome today. I'm just really excited to have you here today.
Thanks.
So first off, let's just, if you don't mind, could you share about your port wine stain birthmark?
Yeah, basically it's caused by blood vessels that are enlarged, and most people don't realize it because they think it's just a skin pigmentation issue, but it goes all the way to my brain and affects the blood vessels there as well. And it also affects my eye. I have glaucoma, which adds extra blood pressure to my eye. So I've had to do eye drops twice a day since I was 8 years old to keep me from going blind. But it also affects like dental aspects. It causes migraines. And everybody has different circumstances when it goes to the brain. A lot of people have seizures and stuff, which I don't have, luckily. But yeah, it's definitely more than just a skin thing. It's caused by extra blood flow, and it kind of just shows by the purple hue on the cheek. So.
Well, thank you so much for that explanation. Now, I did have somebody, one of our viewers, actually emailed me a question prior to the broadcast and asked if, now, do you know the difference between like the raised and the flat? Now, this is a form of hemangioma, correct?
Well, there are vascular birthmarks. The foundation intentionally is plural with the birthmarks because there are different types of vascular birthmarks. I know that they're related in some way because mine's a port wine stain, and yeah, and with the port wine stain, it can have growth, although that's not as common as hemangiomas from my understanding. I don't know. I'm not really a birthmark expert, so I really try not to compare hemangiomas and port wine stains because I feel like my specialty is port wine stain. And so I'm just now starting to learn about hemangiomas, but all I can really say is that they're related in the vascular aspect. But if people want to know more information about it, they can go to the Vascular Birthmarks Foundation website and look at the information there, or contact Dr. Linda.
Okay, thanks so much for that. I know that sometimes there are people that are born with birthmarks that may appear purple or red, but they disappear eventually, and that's obviously not the case with yours, and from what I understand, with the typical port wine stain.
Right.
And for that matter, though, there are certain treatments for port wine stains. For example, laser treatments.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about what laser treatments do, what they don't do? And I know that you've decided to have that done. So could you explain your reasoning for doing that, for making that choice?
Yeah, I actually, when I was born, my parents made that decision for me initially. And you can have them, well, I don't know, actually 24 years ago if it was the same system, but now you can have them from like every 2 months, every 3 months. The face has more sensitive skin on it versus if it's on an arm or a leg. So I think if you have yours on your arm and a leg, you can have it more often because the skin's not as fragile. But yeah, I had them as a baby, and they let me go to sleep through them. And basically what it does is a laser goes in, and it just kind of like light goes in, and it kind of heats up the birthmark and the blood vessels, and it helps kind of kill the blood vessels off and stop the blood flow and shrinks the blood vessels. Or yeah, so so that's what it does. But it can take because now I'm an adult and I stay awake. It takes about 300 laser pulses, individual pulses, to do the treatment. And the thing is I did stop when I was 11, because when I was 11, they said, oh, you have to stay awake. And I was like, well, I'll try one and see how that goes. And I did not like it. I mean, for an 11-year-old, it's a scary experience. And at the same time, the lasers, they weren't really making an effect on my birthmark. We weren't seeing a difference. And so I was like, you know what? I'm happy with who I am as I am anyway. I'm done. Like, I don't need to do this. And so my mom told me, she said, you know what? It's your body. It's your decision. And when I was 18, I started to research the port wine stain on Google. And I realized what can happen if you don't have the treatments, and which is skin growing, pebbles. The skin can turn like pebble stone texture, causing it to bleed at random. And I was like, I'm going back. And it wasn't that I was ashamed of the coloring on my face. It was just, I like the coloring on my face. I just wanted to prevent the growth from happening. So I've had a total of 50 treatments now. So I'm the veteran. Yeah.
Well, so you were saying that there are definitely potential health issues for not doing the treatments.
Yeah. Well, even with the treatments, so there are these things that people call bleebs, which are little spots on the birthmark that grow and raise a little bit. Even with the treatments in the last, because I've really been doing them consistently for 2 years now, or 3 years now. And even with them, I've had 3 little bleebs appear on my birthmark. So that shows that because I am getting treatments and it's still growing, that I definitely have more of an aggressive port wine stain than what I initially thought. So I don't know if I would have had more growth marks had I not started the treatments up on and off when I was 18 and more consistently when I hit about 21.
So what you're saying is that for some people, this just continues to grow. It gets bigger.
Yeah, and actually, from my understandings, hormones also affect it as well, because my lip is not symmetrical, neither is my cheek. And during certain hormone changes, like if you're pregnant and puberty, it can cause growth as well. And actually, Dr. Linda told me, you know, there are certain medications with hormone infusions that I have to avoid because there are certain hormones that cause the growth more than others.
I just want to plug that Dr. Linda and I actually did do a webisode. Yeah, a webinar. I don't remember what it is, but if you go to my webpage and go to the webinar listing, you'll see the entire listing of all my past webinars. And Linda was just an amazing guest to have. She's very knowledgeable about vascular birthmarks.
Yeah.
So if you want to study or learn more about it, definitely check that out. Or
Yeah.
and website, like Crystal said.
She is definitely knowledgeable. Like, she knows so much about it. She's taught me a lot. And they're working on a new book, I believe, explaining birthmarks in more detail. Like they have an older one and they're doing an updated version. So if you're interested in that, there's information on the website about that book as well.
I don't want to go off on that tangent too much. I do want that, I do remember she mentioned that the book is geared towards medical professionals because there's actually a lot of misunderstandings between different forms of vascular birthmarks, even in the medical community.
Yeah.
And trying to give standardized definitions internationally.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you some more. Can you describe what it was like during your childhood with a face that was obviously different?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me about that, and it's funny. I mean, there are some things I remember, but when you're a kid, you just want to focus on watching the most recent Barney episode or playing with your cousin, or you focus on that aspect of life. But I did notice when people would stare at me or make comments, although I don't remember the comments now. But I do remember one time when somebody was staring at me, and I really feel like this was a big developmental, like, it helped develop who I am today and my outlook on life, where somebody was staring at me and they were being very obviously rude. And my mom could tell it was bothering me, and she usually does a mother bear thing where she tries to protect me. Even now at 24, like, she tries to like hide people from staring. And she told me, she goes, I know they're staring, I know they're being rude. However, you can choose how you react. And this person who's staring, maybe they're having the worst day of their life. Maybe like nobody has smiled at them today or all week. So what if you smile at them and just try to change and shift gears on what's happening, and maybe you'll make a new friend or make their whole entire day a much better place. And so I don't know, I feel like that definitely helped me, and it stuck with me ever since. And my family has been amazing. Like, they've been amazing, and they've never treated me like I was any different than my sister or my cousins. And yeah, I had a great childhood where I got to play and be a kid.
Yeah, that's excellent because I understand that. My family was also very good that way. My parents, they took me all kinds of places, so I've never felt like I didn't belong out in public. If
Mm-hmm.
there was any shortcoming at all, it would be on how to interact with other people. Some of the stuff that you describe about being sensitive to what other people might be thinking or feeling is something that I've only come on recently, in recent years.
Yeah.
So I kind of missed that, but I was able to I figured out I could just go on with my life anyway,
Yeah.
regardless. But it is amazing when you have a good support system, nothing beats it.
Right.
In fact, that actually is a great segue because we wanted to talk about mentors and mentorship. So tell us about some of the mentors you've had and how they've influenced you.
Yeah, I have different mentors for different things. And it's funny, some of these people started mentoring me before I even realized that they were mentoring me. And one man, he helped mentor my writing, Jack Williams. He actually passed away this month. But he was one of those people who believed in me before I even believed in myself, if that makes sense. Like, I think he saw more in me than a 12-year-old usually sees in themselves. And
Very common.
yeah, he gave me a lot of guidance in writing, and he could say more in a one sentence than most people can say in a paragraph. And so he just always gave me book advice and writing advice, and was just always an encouragement. And I have another writing mentor. He doesn't know I call him this, but my friend Eric Thompson. But he writes for a magazine and does a lot, and worked with Jack as well. And then I have a speaking mentor, Amberly Neese. She's a really good friend of mine. And so I have other mentors than that, but a lot of these people, they keep you sane sometimes. So if you have a really great writing experience, then they're like, oh, awesome. They cheer you on. And if you have this really discouraging speaking experience, which I had recently, they still cheer you on, and they say, you know what, you've had one bad experience. You know what? That's okay. Like, there's the next one. You don't let certain people stop you from what you're doing. And so they just encourage you and they keep you sane. And I even have one lady Angie Outlaw, she mentors me in life aspects in general. And she's throughout the last few years, especially since going viral, she's always been like, all right, is this what you want to do? Do you want to be the girl who has the birthmark, who talks about her birthmark? Because, you know, you are so much more than that. And if this is what you want to do, great. Like, this is awesome. What you're doing is awesome. But I want to make sure you are okay with this, because sometimes things naturally happen. So she wanted to make sure I was okay with the way things were going naturally. And so she's always constantly reminding me, you're so much more than the birthmark on your face. Like, that doesn't really define you, but you're using it in awesome ways. So yeah, they've been great. So great.
Your mentors, and I was talking to Crystal before we started the show. Mentoring never stops. Always have, I mean, if you're open to it, you will have mentors throughout your entire life. I mean, I'm turning 50 this year, and I still have areas that I find or seek mentors. And sometimes they just happen without you even realizing that that's what's happening. But I have Icelandic horses. So I had an Icelandic horse mentor. And speaking, when I first got into speaking, especially with a facial difference, I sought out people with facial differences that were speaking, and I found David Roach, who actually signed up for this. So I don't know if David's watching, but they are always out there. And if you open yourself to that, and hopefully, I mean, I don't consider myself a mentor, but I'm sure because of the knowledge that I've experienced over the years, that I am always willing to help people, which brings me to, are you mentoring people, Crystal? Do you have people that you mentor?
There's a girl that in the church I grew up in, she's like 6, 7 years younger than me. And I mentor her. We actually consider each other basically like sisters. But with writing and speaking in particular, I don't know, I try to share the wisdom I have. So if people ask me for advice, then I'll give it to them, stuff that I've learned from writers' conferences, media conferences. And so, because I feel like if people are aiming towards the same goal to help change the world in some way, and you already have the knowledge, why not share it? Why not help each other out? Like, it's not a competition, so you might as well help people out. And so, whenever I have the chance, I'm always happy to explain stuff I've learned. But I don't know that there's really anybody that I mentor consistently. Like, it's just whenever things come up or someone's publishing a book or I'm trying to figure out how to get more media, then I share what I know. But I am hoping to hopefully one day have someone I can consistently mentor in writing and speaking. But yeah.
And in the same way that we find mentors sometimes without even looking, we become mentors without even trying.
Yeah.
So the less you try, the more likely it's probably going to happen, especially if you keep sharing and keep being willing to share.
Yeah.
I have an attitude. I've put a lot of money into educating myself about certain things. And I decided a long time ago that I really appreciated when people shared with me. And so I try to return that sharing. But even though I may have paid for the information, if it can be useful for someone else, why not?
Right. Yeah. And, I realize even as I'm thinking about this, like, while I would love to mentor people and I am slowly, like, one chunk at a time, one person at a time, most of my mentors in my life, because I've listed 4, but there are a few more than that. But they just kind of happen naturally. Like, friendships were built and they took me under their wing because they had more wisdom in some area of life than what I had. And they just happened naturally. They just came out of friendships. And so, yeah, that's sometimes where it starts.
I want to make sure that the people who are watching, and we do have a handful of people watching us live today, thank you very much for joining us. If you have any questions, just feel free to type it into the chat and we will address that anytime. We don't have to wait for the end. Now I want to get into kind of what our title suggests, Beauty Equals More Than a Like. You had a picture of yourself go viral. Could you tell the story about how that happened?
Yeah, so I blog about my story and I share pictures. I never really thought much about it. And even as I started telling my story and started realizing the power of my story, I never realized how different I guess I was. And even as I started blogging. But one day I came home from class and one of my friends in Alabama contacted me and she said, "Hey, I saw your picture on my Facebook newsfeed today." And I thought, what does that even mean? And I clicked on what she sent me, and it was one of my post-laser treatment photos, which usually after it's really purple and swollen. And someone took that image, added their logo to the bottom right-hand corner, as if it was their creation, their image, and the text "One like equals beautiful." And yeah, at first I was like really caught off guard and just kind of stunned. And it was funny because my mom, like we make jokes about a lot of things. And I ran into the kitchen and because the picture had been up for 8 hours, the one that I saw at that particular time. And I had already 8,000 likes and like thousands of shares and stuff like that. And it had only been up for a few hours. And I ran into the kitchen and my mom was getting ready to go out. And I said, "Mom, I think I'm going viral." And she looks at me and she goes, "Well, I don't really know what that means exactly, but I know I don't have a face that could go viral." Like, because she was like, kind of like going viral. Like she had an idea, but she was like, I don't have a face that could go viral. So she added this humor into it instantly. But yeah, it was this shocking thing. And the more research I did, and the more I tried to hunt down my own face, I had 16 major shares that I ever found. Eventually I did stop looking because I found ways like I should fight back in ways that could actually make a difference versus just hunting down my own face. And it went viral to 30 million people around the world. One share alone has 256,000 likes and thousands of comments and thousands of shares. And the pictures next to mine in all of these situations were premature babies, kids with cancer, stuff like that. Like images that would tug on the heartstrings of people to pull them towards a Facebook page and to draw them in. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And yeah.
What did you learn from that? How did that incident inspire you moving forward?
Well, when I was 17, I heard Natalie Grant speak at a teen event, and I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be a speaker. And then I told myself, well, I don't have a story. I don't have a story. I don't have a message. And so I brushed it off and forgot about it. And before my photo went viral, I started to remember that dream slowly through other situations. But when my picture went viral, it really pushed me harder to write and to speak. And it really pushed that dream. And I don't know, I've learned a lot of lessons because it did open a door of insecurities I never knew I could have because I was never insecure about my birthmark. I never was. Because I think what happened is I read thousands of comments. I read 30,000 because, well, bad decisions. But I read 30,000 because I thought, I hear people say comments to me sometimes on a daily basis about my appearance. Total strangers will come up to me and tell me I'm contagious or that if they were me, they would never leave the house. And so I was like, I hear this stuff all the time. I usually make jokes of it. Like, I'm fine right now, so why not read some comments? And I sat down for a few hours, read about 30,000. And I think that was the moment for the first time in my life I saw my eyes through thousands of strangers. And so I did struggle for a while. But I don't know, it just, at the same time, it did make me stronger. I think it's helped me become to the point where, what, I'm going to share my story. I'm going to do what I want. It doesn't matter what other people think as long as I'm doing things for the right reason. And, yeah, and that, I grew up in a Christian home where it really there's a Bible verse that says I'm beautifully and wonderfully made, and I know not every viewer will be Christian, but for me in that aspect, I really had to focus on that verse, and I really learned a lot through faith-oriented lessons as well. And so I learned a lot, and a lot of friends. I don't know. I learned I had friends I never knew I really had, and it really helped me develop a lot of really strong friendships. So yeah, I mean, I learned a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm not even sure how I would handle that. I'm actually at a point with my situation that I wouldn't mind if I had something go viral, but then you want it to be your own choice. You want it to be your own doing. And this was effectively stolen
Hmm.
for sympathy.
Yeah, and I've told several people. I mean, had my picture gone viral with my story, or with my blog, or with my name, that would have been a little bit different. I still would have probably preferred people asking me to use it, but in that way. But at the same time, like I always tell people, had they asked my permission and included my blog, it would have been different. But when your picture goes viral without your consent, you know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and people were putting their own fictional 1,000 words next to my image instead of what was actually happening. Because a lot of people, they thought I was asking this person to create a meme about me because I didn't have confidence in myself, that I didn't think I was beautiful. And so a lot of the comments were about that. And I was like, if you only knew my story, like you would know that is not true. I am confident. I don't need the internet and thousands of strangers to validate my beauty. These likes, they don't make me beautiful. They don't really say that I'm beautiful, because I know I'm beautiful, and that's all that matters. And my family and my friends, they know my story, and they know who I am, and they find me beautiful. And so the thousands of strangers, I don't need those likes, because I have the people I need to encourage me in that way, not some Facebook meme.
Exactly, because the message behind it is much more important than the picture itself.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And yeah. So it just, yeah, it's an interesting process to go through. And I mean, if you ever go viral, I recommend don't read the comment section. But you know, in my head, I was also like, well, it's great speaking content and great writing content. And so I was even thinking about that even when I was like going through it and going through the shocks. It was kind of funny, like looking back now, how I was still kind of had my head tight in that aspect, but at the same time, yeah, it was a whole new experience.
Have you heard of Lizzie Velasquez?
Yes. Oh my word. She is amazing. Yeah. She
Yeah,
went viral on YouTube, right?
yeah, she has. She was called the ugliest woman on the internet, and she did the same thing you did. She read all the comments, and she had her little mini nervous breakdown and all that, and then realized, and basically kind of turned it around the same way that you're doing, and
Mhm.
decided, I have a message for the world. I want the world to see me for who I really am instead of for who these people say I am.
Yeah, it's actually I have a what I call my God-sized dream board, and it's about all these really huge dreams. And one of them, which because the board only holds so many, really it only holds 9, and I have like 50 dreams that I'm going for. But one of my dreams is to like meet her and work with her, because our messages, although our stories are different in some ways, like she was YouTube, I was Facebook. Um, I would love to work with her and do some stuff with her. Like that would be amazing. She's got a powerful story.
Yeah, I managed to connect with J.R. Martinez, and that's one of my dreams, is to be able to work with him to do a speaking tour or something with J.R.
Oh, that's cool.
All right. Do you have recommendations? I mean, your photo going viral was something you really did not have any control over. I mean, aside from advising people, if it does happen, don't read the comments. Do you have any, is there any way to prevent something like that from happening?
So there are basically some basic tips I give to people to try to avoid these situations. Because I mean, a lot of parents are, they ask me about this actually, even if their child doesn't have a physical difference, they want to know, like, even, and I hate using the term like this, but normal looking people, which I hate that term. I just, people without a physical difference, they, even they go viral. They get turned into memes. And so they're like, well, what about my kids? I don't want this to happen to their photos. So I basically tell these tips of whatever you put online, you just have to know it, once it's out there, it is always out there. There's no getting rid of it. Also, make sure your security settings on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, make sure they're set how you need them, like for privacy issues. On Facebook now, I thought I was secure about things as well actually before, but now like I double check and make sure that the posts I don't want to go to the public are for friends only, and if I want it to go public, I open it up. And then also for me now as a blogger, I add logos to my photos because I shared the image on my blog and Facebook, and I'm confident that because of my security settings on Facebook, they got it from my blog. And so I now add, if my birthmark is dominant, I usually add a logo. However, I'm now at this point in my life where it's like, I almost don't want to care about that anymore because my message is getting out there. And you look at people like Lizzie or that pastor from Australia who doesn't have arms and legs. I know his name. I just looked him up yesterday. But
it's a really kind of a complicated name. Viglio or something like that.
Yeah. But like they don't add logos to their photos. So for me, it's just kind of like, you know what? If I do my thing, people are going to eventually know the name associated with the images. So yeah, but if you do somehow go viral, a lot of people don't realize there's the report button doesn't work. That they say, well, it's not nudity, so it's okay. But there is this thing called the Digital Millennium Act, or Copyright Act. Yeah. And so that's where if you have proof that this was your image first and that it originated from you and you own it, then they'll take stuff down. Which the report button for me didn't work, but I had to go to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and I was able to get 8 photos removed out of 16. And eventually, the reason I only got 8 removed was because I got tired of looking for my image, and so I was like, you know what, it's out there. I reminded myself, once it's out there, it's out there. People can copy, can paste. It's out there. So I decided to better spend my energy. So there are different things you can do. Your settings, remember things are out there. And yeah, just be cautious of what you put online.
Yeah, a friend of mine has said, don't put anything on Facebook that you would not post on a billboard by the side of the highway.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be seen by more people on Facebook than it would be on a billboard. But I made the same decision that you did. I decided to let go. I've had websites for years. I have photos of myself out there. I can't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
people want to use it if they want to ridicule me. I mean, I'm not as thick-skinned as I probably should be, but so far, knock on wood, I haven't had major problems. Maybe it's coming. But again, the more we get ourselves out there, the more we become more public figures, the more people are going to realize, oh yeah, that's Dawn or that's Crystal.
Yeah, and see, part of the struggle comes in too, where I've had to like let go of adding a logo to every photo. Is, a lot of the websites that I contribute to, they don't want photos with logos. They want copies of it without something added to it. And so I've, had to say, well, if I don't take off the logo, then they might not publish me. And so is it really worth not getting the message out there? And I've realized, you know what, the message is more important than worrying about my images getting out there. Because even on YouTube, they can screenshot a video and use that image. And I made a joke to my friend last night, and I said, I've already gone viral once. Like, really, a second time really can't be that much different or that much worse. And so I'm just like, I'm getting much more relaxed, but the first year and a half, I was definitely like, I have to add a logo to everything. And now I'm just like, you know what? Whatever. It's happened once. Who cares if it happens again? Yeah.
We need a virtual assistant to handle our virtual reality.
That'd be nice.
I know you've covered a little bit of this already. You actually work in social media, the work you do for the Vascular Birthmarks Foundation, and you're active on social media. So how do you keep it from getting out of hand? How do you control your social media consumption and usage?
Oh goodness, that is actually really hard sometimes. Sometimes I actually have weeks where I realize how much I've looked at my phone or my computer, and I'm like, I have got to step away because there's more to life. There's a root, like there's outdoors, there's stuff outside these four walls on my computer. No, it's hard, and I think for me and my generation, at least, we're almost expected to be on every social media platform: Snapchat, Instagram, Tumblr, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter. We're expected to be everywhere. And so finding a balance in normal life and controlling the usage and all that, it can be hard, but especially when you're trying to build a platform, I think, too, and your job is to be online. So I really, I don't know, some weeks I have times where I'm more on it, and sometimes where I'm like, you know what, I'm taking a social media break, and nothing is wrong with that. Sometimes, because sometimes I'll just do extra work the week before, and I'll be like, you know what, I've pre-scheduled a lot of posts for the next week, so I'm just going to take a couple of days, and I'm just not going to get on a computer or look at Facebook. And so sometimes it's just taking those vacations once a month or once every couple of months, and that often is a helper in that as well.
I know that my husband and I have been taking a cruise once a year for the last 5 years, and I don't get online. First of all, it's slow. I mean, I do while we're leaving port, but for that 3-4 days that we're actually out in the water, I use my phone as my clock, and that's about it.
Yeah.
It's actually, it is refreshing, and I do it on purpose. I mean, we can afford to access the internet if we wanted to, but what's so important, it can't wait a few days.
Yeah, and actually, you know, for me, I actually let my phone die a lot, and my mom gets really mad because she's like, I need to be able to get a hold of you. But I don't mind when it dies, because I'm just like, nobody can get a hold of me, and I can't get a hold of them. This is really nice. And then I'm like, wait, my mom wants to get a hold of me, so then maybe I'll charge it after 20 more minutes. But yeah, it's nice to like go up to Yosemite, the national park, where there's like no cell signal. And I've done camps up in that area as a counselor for like a week time. And that's a nice getaway as well, is having that time at camp with people outdoors and no cell signal. It's a really good feeling.
Well, I'm going to back up a little bit because we've had a couple of questions come in.
Okay.
Brian, earlier on, he mentioned, now I went ahead and snuck in a few of your baby shots.
Right.
But even beyond that, he says that he saw a difference between the appearance of your face now, as you are right now on the webinar, and how it looked in the photo that went viral. And so what was the time frame? How long ago did that photo going viral? How long ago did that happen? And is the difference because of your laser treatments?
So the photo actually about 2 weeks ago popped up on my timeline saying, oh, this picture was taken 3 years ago. That selfie was taken 3 years ago, as of 2 weeks ago. And it went viral about a year following. So this July makes 2 years of it being viral. But yeah, the coloring difference is because of the laser. It basically swells it, it makes it darker in tone, and then eventually gets lighter. And even with the treatments, the goal is to basically lighten the birthmark, or to see that it's lightening it. My goal is not to lighten it, really. But when it lightens, that's showing that it's working, and that it's basically helping it stop the growth process, potentially. So yeah, it's not usually that dark unless it's after treatment, but my birthmark is like a mood ring, where every picture you see of me is different depending on lighting and depending on how I feel, depending on the temperature, because it changes with the temperature. When it's cold, it gets really, really purple, and then sometimes it gets really, really red. So if I'm sick, my mom knows. She knows. She can tell.
Okay, so another question I had came in from Kathy, and she wanted to commend you for having such a comfortable disposition in what you're talking about. And also, she asks, when you have negative days, how do you accept your facial difference, especially if you're going out into the world and being stared at?
So I have a couple of answers for that. Sometimes I do hide my birthmark with makeup, maybe once a year, twice a year, maybe. I use makeup and I hide it as best as I can with my limited skill set, just so I can be me. And because sometimes people meet your appearance before they meet you, and so sometimes I'll do that just for me, just to like be, I don't have to be the girl with the birthmark all the time. But even then, like, it's still not symmetrical, and people, even if I hide it, people be like, why is that side of your face so swollen, or why is your lip not even, like, what's going on? So even with that, people still say things. One of the things that I've done is when I went viral, I really did struggle. I was in a really dark place initially, and I realized that's when I was seeing the smaller picture of things. There was a lot of those days, while some of them were super valid, a lot of them were also self-pity days. And there were days where I'm like, do it.
We all have those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Facial differences have self-pity days.
Yeah. So like anybody, facial difference or not, yeah, we have self-pity days. And so I started realizing those were the days where I was focusing on the smaller picture. But then there were days where I was like, this is going to be great. Something great is going to come out of this. And the next day, self-pity day again. And I really got tired of that roller coaster of feeling awesome to feeling terrible to feeling awesome. And so I realized, you know what? I have dreams. And I'm going to dream what most people see as the impossible. And I'm going to write these dreams out, and I'm going to put them on a board so that every day when I wake up, I have to see this board, and I have to see my dreams. When I go to bed, I have to see my dreams. And so once I did that, oh my gosh, my attitude did this 180 where I was able to focus on the bigger picture and focus on the ultimate goal. And that totally changed my perspective. But there are times, I was just venting with my mom the other day about a situation that happened where sometimes I just need a sounding board, and it's okay to have those bad days. I just need someone to listen, and I'm very sarcastic, and so when people make comments, I'll give a verbal response out of professionalism and kindness, and I'll come home and I'll say, Mom, guess what happened today? And she's like, oh no. And I'll say, this is what they said, this is what I said, but this is what I wanted to say, and then we just make a joke out of it. And so I have different tactics on finding that balance and staying sane through it all.
Yeah, I certainly get you there, because obviously, it's not like I go out in the world and nobody notices. Yeah. So I actually use it to my advantage when I can. So
yeah,
I like to make myself unforgettable. So David, who I referenced earlier as one of my speaking mentors, actually has a question for us.
Okay.
Steve always says thank you. He's enjoying the show. So thank you for being here, David. I appreciate it. Crystal, how does your faith inform your attitude and experience? And how do you speak about it?
How does my faith impact it? That's a good question. I think that's a good question. I don't know. So when I speak, depending on my platform and where I'm at, I will bring up my faith or not. But I think that, I don't know, one of the big lessons I had after my photo went viral when I was going up to speak at a Christian women's event, I really was feeling my words of encouragement for the other women and not for myself. I was like, these words are so true, but not for me. Because I was still in a really bad place. And there is a Bible verse that talks about like I knit you together in your mother's womb. And I've heard that verse 1,000 times in my walk with faith and going to church. But this time I saw an aspect of the verse I never really noticed before, of the word knit. And I thought of knitters. And I thought about when people knit things, because my grandma crochets, so same kind of concept. They pick the colors of the yarn, they pick the pattern, they pick, am I making a summery thing, a wintry thing, the purpose of what they're making. And so I realized knitters are really intentional. And so for me, I was like, God's a knitter and he's intentional. And, you know, a lot of people tell me, they'll say, oh, you're the girl who has something wrong with your face or something along those lines. I'm just like, if my God's a knitter and he's intentional, how are God's intentions wrong? Like, yeah, the migraines are not fun. Yeah, the glaucoma, I would rather do without. But, you know, I just have faith that God had a reason, and I just go with it. And I just try to be open to the dreams and to the way that life goes, and going through open doors and just taking it as it comes. So that's one of the big faith lessons that I've had and how it's really impacted me. As a girl, I color coordinate scarves a lot. I love scarves. It's a problem. I have too many. Ask my mom. And I like to color coordinate them. And so I make this analogy where it's kind of like God knit me together and he's color coordinating me to the plans he has for my life. So that's kind of how my faith, that's a really long explanation, but that's how my faith has really helped impact this whole journey, especially since going viral.
We have a couple of other questions. They kind of relate.
Okay.
Well, I know they don't actually, but Nicola is asking, is there a temperature difference one side to the other? Is your birthmark side a little warmer if you were to take your temp there?
I don't know.
I'm
like, I don't know. I don't know. That's a really good question. I love that question more than you realize. I don't know, but when you're like touching your own face, it's harder to tell. I don't.
It says that her baby actually has about a degree centigrade higher temp in the ear if you take it on the temple of the ear on her birthmark side.
That's an interesting question. I mean, usually, because when you go to a doctor's office, they do the forehead, and mine's not on the forehead. But I guess it would be interesting because it's in my ear. It would actually, now I'm wondering if I were to get one of those ear thermometers, if I put one in each ear and like did them at the same time, if like there would be a temperature difference because of the effect in the ear. Now I'm intrigued. I'm going to have to do an experiment later on today.
Well, thank you, Nicola, for giving Crystal something to do. She's going to do the temperature experiment. So, Angie asks, and she said she wants to know about the role of your mother in terms of your confidence level. She is referencing when you said that you didn't even realize until you were a teenager that you were different. And so what advice would you have for the parent of a young child or an infant to help them get to that point where you are?
Well, that's a really good question. For parents, I don't know, like, just treat them like a kid, let them do their thing. Let them embrace who they are, but also let them have their bad days, but encourage them in the midst of them. Keep them grounded. Like, my mom's kept me grounded a lot of times, more than I can say. Yeah, I just think encouraging them is really what you can do. And I even, a lot of parents, they're now on Facebook support groups and saying, oh, my child has this condition, my child has condition, and your child does too. I think had my mother had this access to Facebook like we do now, she would have probably done a few things, such as, I'm speaking on her behalf, but I'm making an assumption, I guess. But I didn't meet anyone who had the same condition as myself until this last summer. And I think, being able to meet people at a younger age who look like you is so cool. And so my mom, when I met somebody who looked like me for the very first time, she went with me. She supported that. And I think one of the biggest things, too, for my mom's support was when I said, Mom, I don't want to do these treatments anymore. And I was 11, and she let me make my own medical decision. And that, to me, is so important. And I cannot thank her enough for that, for letting me make that decision and just supporting that. So those are a few tips, I guess.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out when it comes to making the medical decision, when I was growing up, I always felt like, and I know that my parents, they were doing what they felt was best for me, but I developed an attitude that this was just what you did. The surgeries to try to improve my face, the symmetry, whatever could be done to make my face look more normal should be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of expected. And I don't think anybody ever told me that I was going to come out of it looking perfect. I don't think anybody ever told me I have to do this. But that was kind of the vibe I had. And it wasn't until I was 21 and had a surgery actually go very wrong that I realized, yeah, I do have a choice. And guess what? I don't want to do this anymore. So it's too much for too little result.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, a part of it is that, I mean, every medical condition, of course, is wrong, or wrong, not wrong, different. So it, you know, for some people, maybe giving your child that permission is the wrong choice. But in my situation, specifically, like, it was an okay decision for her to make. And, you know, depending on the age of your child, depends on how much you can also explain about the medical condition. So what I realized in my situation with that is that when you grow up with a condition, doctors don't tell a 7 or 6-year-old who watches Barney, oh, hey, if you don't have these treatments, your birthmark can grow and your skin can grow over your eye and you won't be able to see anymore. They don't tell you that, of course, for good reasons. And so I think, you know, they forget to update you along the way about different situations. And even my mom, when we've talked about it, she's like, I didn't know about these medical complications because of the way that the medical system has developed and learned things. But yeah, that was such a big thing where she let me make that decision. But I would like to add, every medical condition is different. And so, you know, it's situational. It's not just, you know, let your kid make their own medical decision. I'm not encouraging that necessarily. But depending on your situation and the type of procedures you're having or having your child do, you know, have the flexibility if you can. But again, situational, and only you can really help make that decision with your child, not me. So
Angie is pointing out that your mom wrote an article, or there's an article from your mom's point of view.
I think I know which Angie this is. Yeah, she actually wrote an article called "The Stain." It's on my blog, and it's about from a mother's perspective, and just about, you know, having a child who is born and looks different, and one of her growth, her growth that she's had through that herself. It's one of the top read, I think, in one of the right columns. But yeah, it's called "The Stain."
Actually. So I'm putting your blog up because I wanted to talk about it anyway. So your website.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my blog. And those are some of the feature articles that I've featured intentionally on my blog. But to the right, there are columns of like my older entries and also the top 10 entries, so people can look at them by year, by month, by the top 10. And also up where the fun facts and stuff, it's just random stuff about me and videos that I have. My friend wrote a song about my story with a video collage of photos, and so that's under videos, as is Sharing the Stage with Natalie Grant, my favorite singer, and the woman who said yes to speaking so I could end up saying yes eventually. So I have those videos listed as well.
Okay. How did you get the name, speaking of your blog and your website, thetravelandchick.com? The Traveling Chick. Where did that come from?
Yeah, so it's funny because that really has nothing to do with birthmarks. my blog really started off as this thing of, I'm going to start a blog. I don't think I'll ever actually use it much, but if I do, I'll probably blog about traveling because that's what I do. And so I started it, and it just my blog kind of morphed and grew with me. And so I did blog about some traveling stuff, and I blogged about life stuff, and then I did one blog entry about my birthmark when I started up my treatments again, because I had a lot of people getting really confused about the treatments. So I thought, let me take a step back, let me blog about it. And now that's one of the top, no, that is the top subject I blog about. However, people ask me, why is it called the traveling chick if you focus on your facial difference? It's kind of now for me, I'm just traveling through life. Yeah, I still travel. I just went to New York, and I'm just traveling through life, and, whatever it throws my way. And so that's a title that can stick with me for as long as as long as I'm alive, whether I'm traveling on a plane or I'm just traveling through my 20s and traveling through the experience with the facial difference and traveling through the different dreams I have. So it just, it started off travel blog, but now it's like I'm just traveling through life. So, yeah.
So it's gone from literal to metaphorical.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Tell us about the book that you're writing.
Yeah, so I've wanted to write a book a while, and when I went viral, that really gave me an interesting angle a lot of people don't have, especially when you're turned into a meme without your consent. And so it's focused around that. However, I talk about different life experiences through it, tied to me going viral. So, for example, I have a chapter that I'm working on in it about dating, and that's primarily because I'm a 24-year-old gal, and that's a big thing with 24-year-olds. However, when my picture went viral, a casting agency in the UK contacted me, and they wrote me about being on a show for people with significant medical conditions who are looking for love. And the shows that fit that description are Too Ugly for Love and The Undateables. And so that really, that was a result of me going viral and having a video made professionally. And so I talk about the lesson I learned even from the man contacting me about that and my response. And every chapter that I've written so far, I've actually learned a lot about my own story and about myself. And I go even beyond the birthmark. I go beyond the stain. And it's while every chapter has an angle of the birthmark included, I really go to who I am as a person and the lessons I've learned. And I know a lot of people don't have a facial difference, so they can't necessarily relate to that, but I do my best to make every chapter relatable to people without facial differences, and I try to have in every chapter something, at least one thing everybody can walk away with, hopefully. So, yeah, it's based around going viral, but it has a lot more content with other surrounding things that happen from that.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that you're learning so much about yourself by writing a book. I can definitely testify to that. When I wrote my memoir, Facing Up to It, that was it. I learned so much about myself during that process. It was a long process, 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like it transformed me.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, it really, it's a growing experience. It's actually really scary. I did a blog entry about why writing a book is hard, and it's about because you have to be vulnerable. And I'm really not that worried about being vulnerable with other people when the content is finished. But to write a book, it's much different than writing a blog in a lot of ways. It's similar in a lot of ways, but also different. But because you go so much deeper in a book than one basic blog entry, and you really have to be vulnerable with yourself, and you have to let yourself remember things that maybe you intentionally blocked out, but it has a key part in your book. And so I don't care about being vulnerable with an audience, but being vulnerable with myself and being willing and open to learning about my own story and lessons from it as well. That's, that for me has been a hard thing to do, but I'm also thankful that I'm learning through it, even in the midst of the scary part of having to do that.
So we're getting close to having to wrap the show, but I did want to ask you, what is the projected date? Do you have a projected completion date for your book?
Not really. That's one of my summer projects once the semester is over, is to hopefully complete the first draft. I'm really aiming for next year, to have it be available for people to buy, like maybe early next year.
And you had mentioned, and you mentioned it in your introduction, you carry a camera and paper and pen around with you for capturing beauty around you. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know, this world is such a beautiful place, and there's so many ways to capture the beauty. And I don't know, my dad bought me my first SLR Nikon camera when I was 13. I didn't even ask for it. And I just came home from school one day and it's on the table and I'm like, who's that? Like, who does that belong to? And he's like, oh, that's yours. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to complain about that one. Um, and so that started a whole new hobby for me. And um, it's one of those situations, I guess, where someone saw something in me then that I didn't see in myself, with a talent. And um, so yeah, I've always been a writer. Even before I started writing about my facial difference, I've always been a writer. I've always, done photography, and I just think if you look hard enough and you try, there's beauty around you everywhere you go, even in the most thinkable places. Like even in my story, you don't think going viral and struggling and opening a door of insecurities that there's going to be beauty in that, especially initially. And but there has been a lot of beautiful moments, and so I just, I try to find the small, beautiful, lovely things in life, and I just search to find the beauty and in everything. So yeah.
Well, that's definitely an excellent attitude to have going out in the world, and not always an easy one to do.
No, it's not, but it is good. It's a helpful one.
So the question that I have that I ask all my guests, and it's kind of a wrap up closing question is, if you had one action item, something that or something that someone could do, could start on today or tomorrow that might help improve their life going forward, what advice or recommendations do you have?
Um, a couple of things that come into my mind is just having a good group of friends who encourage you and don't pull you down, who believe in your dreams as much as you do, if not more. Angie, who's on this webinar, sometimes she dreams bigger for me than I dream for myself, and she's just amazing in that way. But also,
It really is nice to have someone like that. We
yeah,
all need.
yeah, she's definitely one of those people for me. And I think also just being willing to dream, because I think so many of us, I don't know, we get caught up in being adults and having to go to school and having to work a job, and a lot of people raising families, and we forget that, hey, it's okay to dream. And so I think just setting dreams for yourself, as big and scary as you want them to be, or maybe something smaller. Just start somewhere, and then once you start dreaming, don't be afraid to share them with people, because you really have no idea how much other people might help you with it, where they might be, for one of my God-sized dreams, I wanted to share the stage with Natalie Grant, and a bunch of my friends sent in nominations to Natalie on my behalf, and because they wanted this to happen for me. And a lot of people, for other dreams, they have the doors that they can open, and they have opened to help me reach my goal. And so dare to dream and just share them so people can encourage you and help you along the way. And I would say those are two of my top words of advice, I guess.
I know that
Yeah.
you've been working to take back that photo that went viral, And I don't have the one that you just posted, I think yesterday, but I do have the
Yeah.
one a few days ago. So I'm going to share that. And you can see that, right? You
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
know, but so it kind of sums up. And it also gives you Crystal's contact. I mean, all of her social media stuff is on her website, which is there. It's also, I have it on as a little thing on our chat window. But the idea that she has decided to own this instead of letting it destroy her, she owns it. And that's what Lizzie Velasquez did too. And that's what we all have to do. We have to own it. So before I close the show, do you have any parting words, final thoughts, Crystal?
Great question. Really, it's just thanks for joining us and for watching. Really excited that some people were here today and had things to ask. And yeah, it's been fun. And really, if anybody wants to connect, I'm on Facebook and I have my blog. And even at the top right hand of my blog, very top, has all my social media. So I would be glad to connect with anybody here who wants to stay in touch or talk more.
Okay, you started to break up a little bit there at the end.
Basically just saying I'm happy to like stay in touch with people. All my social media is linked at the top right hand of my blog. So if people want to be in touch, then awesome. Like that'd be cool to talk again.
Well, thank you very much, Crystal, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Really enjoy. I mean, I like to have a variety of different guests that talk about different things, and this one has probably gone more into social media than we have, and I think that's an important direction to have a bit of diversity for my show. So thank you again for coming on. My next webinar is Wednesday, June 15th with Shamika Andrews. Shamika is in a wheelchair because she has spina bifida. However, she also coordinates the Miss Wheelchair New York pageant, and she's a wellness coordinator and a living center for people with disabilities. So I'm happy to have Shamika on with me next month. I'd actually asked her to come on about a year ago, and she didn't quite have the technology in place. And she actually sent me the current Miss Wheelchair New York instead, and that was a great interview. So I'm looking forward to having Shamika on with me at long last. And remember, in the same way that you need to be kind to other people, don't forget to be kind to yourself. And hopefully you'll tune in for future shows, and I hope that you get something out of them. Thank you very much.
We are love, we are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other.